Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, Emily Sophia, aka M Mighty Sophia, here to break down for you a little bit on the late side, season 1 of Netflix's Stranger Things. So, there will be minor spoilers strewn throughout this review, so if you haven't seen the show, which I'm suspecting you probably have, because again, this review is super late, then you might want to tune out this time around. But hightail it on back here once you've actually seen the show. So, let's get started. I have a lot of ground to cover, and I hope I can do it in this video. So, been a few weeks since Stranger Things took the world by storm. In fact, when the show first dropped, I was by no means expecting that it would jump to the front of my never-ending television queue. Yet, within hours of its release, I could already feel the riptide of curiosity engulfing me and carrying me out to sea. And by sea, I mean the landlocked town of Hawkins, Indiana. I was swept back in time to 1983, the year the space probe Pioneer 10 officially said sayonara to the creature comforts of our solar system. Sally Ride became the first female astronaut to enter outer space. The A-Team and Star Wars Return of the Jedi made their on-screen debuts. Michael Jackson's Thriller and David Bowie's Let's Dance topped the Billboard charts. The last DeLoreans were manufactured. The United States Department of Energy carried out a series of nuclear tests at what was then the Nevada test site. And the USSR was dubbed the Evil Empire by old Ronald Reagan himself. So, in hindsight, it was a year of cinematic stardust, radio magic, pop culture panache, technological breakthroughs, and political unrest, all nestled in an era that carries serious fascination and nostalgia for many. Stranger Things recalls the work of Stevens, King, and Spielberg, as well as Johns Carpenter and Hughes. It harkens back to Alien, E.T., The Goonies, The Evil Dead, Halloween, Jaws, Close Encounters of a Third Kind, Stand By Me, and an arsenal of other masterworks. It has the cultural appeal of, say, Twin Peaks and The X-Files, and I would say it even calls to mind some video games like Oxenfree, Until Dawn, Life is Strange, Beyond Two Souls, and Silent Hill. Oh yeah. And it's got a bangin' soundtrack with New Order, Toto, The Clash, Modern English, Bob Seger, and the Once Upon a Time semi-obscure synth ensemble Survive, who did the show's theme. So, all that to say, it is such a pleasure to see a show excel at evoking a specific period in time, particularly one that's just removed enough from our own to afford some escapism. And this is precisely what Stranger Things offers us. It's this kaleidoscopic world of old school charm, uncanny familiarity, and supernatural mystery. It's a place we all know, or at least learned about from books, films, or first-hand accounts, made enigmatic and thrilling by the sinister unknown. Stranger Things transports us to a past that exists in fact as well as fiction. It's a marriage of the plausible and the so-called impossible. It invites us into the imaginations of a group of gold-hearted geeks and then thrusts us headlong into adventures that demand every ounce of these kids' storytelling sensibilities. Sewing love into every stitch, Stranger Things, the endearingly retro brainchild of Matt and Ross Duffer, follows Mike, Dustin, and Lucas as they confront mind-boggling mysteries and unearthly dangers to rescue their friend Will Byers, whose disappearance lies at the junction of government experimentation and paranormal awakening. When the bounds separating reality from its monstrous reflection are broken, unleashing an otherworldly being that lusts after blood like a multi-dimensional land shark, it's up to these bicycle-riding junior detectives and a whole cast of characters, including Joyce Byers, the bereaved but undaunted mother of Will, who believes that when there's a will and electricity, there's a way. There's Jim Hopper, the world-weary police chief whose less-than-friendly nature is tempered by his fervor for doing the right thing. And 11, a girl with a shadowy past, psychokinetic powers, and a love of uncooked Eggo waffles. It is up to all these people to retrieve Will from the clutches of his captor. You've also got the teenage dream team of Nancy Wheeler, the star student who catches the eye of the high school heartthrob, but soon finds that this crush is the least of her worries when it becomes evident that evil incarnate is on the loose. It happens, girlfriend, trust me. You've got Barbara Holland, the sweet and level-headed companion to Nancy, who tries to find her footing in the world and put up with her friends' bullshit, but meets a very ill-deserved fate. You have Steve Harrington, the coiffed and slick douchebag who steals and breaks Nancy's heart until coming around to the error of his jackass ways. And then you have Jonathan Byers, the reclusive, misanthropic older brother of Will, who generally keeps to himself in his photography when he's not trying to ward off the scumbag father, keep his mother from falling apart, or pursue the abomination that made off with his sibling. All in a day's work. So all of these characters find themselves in the presence of a predator whose existence thwarts mortal comprehension. And by the time that all is said and done in this season, and I suspect it's not the last, we still don't know much about this creature or its intentions for humanity. However, if the story continues, it could very well be that this beast wants to turn humans into the incubators for its offspring. But I'll save the theory spinning to you guys down in the comments. This is your mission briefing. If you have any thoughts or theories regarding the modus operandi of the Demogorgon, please hit me up. I have so many theories and not nearly enough time in this review to cover what those are. So I leave that to you people. So the long and the short of it is we get to see how these very intriguing and believable characters respond to the tragic loss of their loved ones and face off against the ghastly entity that is responsible for that loss. We get to see how ordinary struggles intersect with the extraordinary, how they grapple with woes like bullying, insecurity, anxiety, and loneliness. But then we see how these characters assert themselves in their beliefs, drives, and passions without totally caving in, and how unlikely heroes are born of even less likely circumstances. We get to see the most beloved elements of sci-fi cinema come to life through a serialized narrative. We get to see classic drama and horror tropes subverted in a show that looks like it came out of the era in which these tropes were so popular. For example, a girl has sex and survives her encounter with the monster that, in another movie, probably would have killed her for her abandonment of feminine chastity. Nancy Wheeler, played to bright-eyed and fierce perfection by Natalia Dyer, bucks the system a time or two. She comes across as far more than just the good girl who flirts with danger and gets burned. As a matter of fact, the guy that she has sex with survives too. Speaking of Steve, he makes quite a comeback in terms of his character, to the point that Nancy actually decides to stay with him instead of pursuing a romance with Jonathan. You know, we expect Nancy to wake up and smell the coffee that Jonathan is brewing, but as it turns out, Steve isn't exactly the cut and dry asshole that he is initially made out to be. On the contrary, he's a multi-dimensional individual. Not in the dimension shifting sense, but in the sense that he's a guy who can do reprehensible things and express genuine remorse for his actions. He's a reasonably complex dude. And Nancy and Jonathan definitely carry some of these same complexities, and the two of them develop a really cool dynamic that shows how flawed and strong they both are. From what we can tell, Jonathan doesn't begrudge Nancy for choosing Steve. Nancy doesn't begrudge Jonathan for calling her out on her BS back when they were preparing to take down their foe. And Steve doesn't even feel the need to keep up the whole alpha male front to prevent Nancy from giving Jonathan a new camera, even after the regrettably voyeuristic little photo shoot back in the day. These characters do at times embody the expected cliches, but they also surpass them in ways that make Stranger Things a really gratifying experience, I think. So this leads me to the kids, Mike, Dustin, Luke, and Will, all of whom are played by fine young actors and come across as very down-to-earth and likable. It's easy for writers to portray children as dumbed-down adults who are inexperienced and incapable of making good decisions, But the Duffer Brothers and company introduce us to a formidable team of adorable super nerds who care about each other and uncovering the truth at whatever the cost. And that's not to say that they're all on the same page all the time. Far from it. They have their own unique feelings and opinions. And while their general worldviews remain pretty consistent over the course of the show, it's clear that these kids are learning and adapting and trying to do right by each other, even when they struggle to find common ground. I think that their science teacher also becomes kind of a cool vehicle for our love of these boys. The teacher respects and invests in the kids, as does the audience. At least I did. They're clever, ambitious, and eager to solve problems with whatever resources they have at their disposal. I'm also genuinely terrified for Will. I just gotta throw that out there, coughing up a monster larva in the bathroom sink and boomeranging back to the Upside Down a month after his rescue. The prognosis isn't looking good here, nor are the implications for the residents of Hawkins or planet Earth. Just saying. Now, I've got to switch gears and give some serious props to Winona Ryder for her acting chops in the role of Joyce Byers. I hope that I'm not off base in putting Winona on par with Vera Farmiga's performance as Norma Bates in Bates Motel, because the energy and emotion she packed into every freaking scene we spent with Joyce was really just exhilarating for me. I know that some would call it over the top or melodramatic. I would call it extravagant. I loved it. The way her voice cracked with raw feeling and her eyes glistened like freshly sharpened daggers when everybody tried to shut her down. Joyce Byers was a reckoning force, in my opinion. She verged on hysteria to an extent that was almost comical, I'm gonna say, but there was something really authentic about the minute-to-minute breakdowns somehow. I don't think that you could go wrong with a woman of Joyce's caliber on your side. 11 was also a pure delight to watch. With often very little to verbalize, Millie Bobby Brown had to command every facial expression and body movement and convey what was going on in 11's mind with her actions and demeanor and physical presence. And I feel like she accomplished that in spades. Not to mention witnessing 11 in a state of rage or psychokinetic power was ridiculously cathartic. I tend to take fondly to telepathic and telekinetic characters as it is. So 11 immediately had me hooked. That kind of power is just really, it's appealing and terrifying to me at the same time. She also had a bit of a Furiosa vibe too, I think owing to the shaved head and the grim determination and escape from a cruel authority figure who placed her in harm's way. I mean, could you see the great Imperator bursting into a grocery store and voraciously stealing all of the frozen waffles that she pleased? I sure as hell could. 11's borderline creepy collared dress and jacket ensemble also immediately became iconic. Ultimately, I think Millie rocked her performance as this girl who was racked with trauma from her upbringing as this lab rat turned secret weapon, who ultimately embraces friendship and her ability to do good in the world. And she kind of gets to combat the havoc that she was forced to wreak as this psychic super spy, whatever you want to call it. She is an excellent heroine who not only helps us understand what happened to Will and Barb and why, but captivates our hearts with her signature blend of innocence and brutality. And I dare say that she isn't gone for good. But last and most certainly not least is the true heartthrob of this series, Hawkins Police Chief Jim Hopper, played by the studly and humorous David Arbor, who I really hope to be seeing more of in the not too distant future. Although our initial impression of Jim is that he's this bad-tempered, rough around the edges cop with a severe lack of faith in humanity, and I mean, come on, who among us has that faith anymore? We watch him come alive as he investigates Will's disappearance and stares unblinking into the heart of darkness. We see him unmasking the government's elaborate cover-up, beaten down guards, violently debugging his wiretapped house, discovering Eleven's brain-dead mother, infiltrating the Upside Down, and reliving the loss of his daughter, too. He's this broken badass who may now very well be involved in the government's interdimensional research program after proving his ability to crack the code. You know, they realize that he's more of an asset than he is a detriment if they can at least make nice with the guy. So it's possible that he would want to get a taste of these potential alternate realities himself. Maybe even saving a surrogate daughter figure, 11, or his deceased actual daughter, Sarah, some version of whom could still be out there. So I would also love to hear your theories too about what you think Hopper could potentially be up to with the government. At this point, the possibilities are pretty much endless, but I do suspect that if they continue this story, he's going to play a very integral role in whatever the crap it is they're going to be doing at Hawkins' lab and so on and so forth. The things that we see at the end of the finale definitely suggest that he knows more than he's letting on to the community. I've read some interviews with David Arbor as well, where he seems to suggest that he's pretty well poised to get deep into these mysteries and uncover more. So, you know, I think that's pretty obvious stuff. But I can't possibly cover every facet of this marvelous show in one foul swoop. So I'll leave it at this. Stranger Things is an exquisite trip back, forward, and outside of time. It has an incredible direction, unforgettable cast, engaging cinematography, captivating set design, and top-notch music. I gotta say, I love the synthwave comeback. I listen to that stuff all the time. So getting to hear it encapsulated in a show in which it fit perfectly was just tremendous for my soul. It blends drama, adventure, mystery, sci-fi, and horror, and crafts a story that's both self-contained and ripe for continuation. That is a very tenuous balance, and I think that Stranger Things strikes it perfectly. It's an instant classic that wraps around us like a favorite blanket and then sweeps us away like a magic carpet ride to faraway lands. So that is my big, giant, sweeping impression of the first season. I loved it. It was emotional and fun and gripping as all get out. I think that I binged it in, 3 sittings, which I don't really know if that constitutes binging, because for some, I'm sure that it was just knocked out in a single sitting. And that wasn't the case for me, and I'm not going to say that it's because, I have more of a life or something. That was just kind of the way that it went down. And honestly, I was really intimidating trying to even do a review of the show because life got so busy. I knew I wasn't going to be able to do it for a very long time, and everybody's been writing about everything and just the nostalgia. And for me, I just wanted to touch on everything I possibly could, and I hope I did that adequately to some extent. Of course, this video is just the beginning of the conversation, so please take your thoughts to the comment section below so that we can continue to discuss and pick apart and analyze and adore together. And have they announced season 2 yet? Because I think they'd best be doing that, unless they're carrying all the thriller suspense elements to the real world, which I definitely think is what's happening, because I would love to have more of this show. So I have many more shows that I'm going to be back to review, and I know the videos have been slow coming, but you guys have been so gracious and patient. Thank you very much for watching this review. I hope that you enjoyed it, that it resonated with you to some degree. I know that my analysis was much more character driven, and there's so many angles that you can take to the show. So I want to hear about the things that were the most interesting to you, whether it was how the story was crafted or the visuals or whatever, man. I want to hear it all. So thank you so much. You guys take care. And as always, I will be back before you know it.